And yeah, I guess it kind of just, I still write this way to this day, is like playing, I'll sit down with the guitar and a notepad, and usually I'll kind of have an outline of what I want to say. And I'll kind of just start like fitting in words to like what I think I can do rhythmically over the riff. So it's very like riff centric, and then the vocals come in. I want to make a point with the vocals, but like I don't want to exceed what I can pull off live, basically.
Hey, what's up, Vox&Hops heads? I'm Matt, the vocalist of Cryptopsy and the host of the Vox&Hops Metal Podcast, brought to you by Sound Talent Media and Evergreen Podcasts, where I sit down with fellow metal musicians, talk all about their lives and music while sharing killer craft beers. Hope you had an amazing week. I most certainly did. This Vox&Hops episode is presented by Heavy Montreal. Heavy Montreal are Montreal's premier metal promoter. They put on a bunch of amazing shows all year long here in Montreal. And if you are ever in Montreal and you would like to go see a great show, well, I can guarantee you that Heavy Montreal will have you covered. I'm beyond stoked to have Heavy Montreal behind the Vox&Hops Metal Podcast. Now, today on the podcast, I'm very stoked to be with Alex Miletich of Rites. Get ready, when this is Vox&Hops episode number 476.
I warn you, what you are about to hear is very disturbing indeed.
Hey, what's up, everyone? Today I'm very stoked to be with Alex Miletich of Rites, and more to us. Alex, we are hanging out because Vox&Hops' metal architect, Jerry Monk, told me I should have a chat with you. So here we are. I know Jerry very well. He's been helping out the podcast for, I don't know, probably 4 years at this point, creating the Brutal Awakenings playlist, where he puts together all the freshest, newest stuff. And he's all about the new Rites that dropped back on August 16th, the Senescence drop that you dropped, Alex. He likes it very, very, very much, he told me. And he's like, you have to have a chat with him. So here we are. I don't know much about you guys. I don't know much about you, but I trust Jerry Monk. So here we go. Let's a silly intro just to say, Alex, how you doing?
Pretty good, man. Excited to be here. Drink some good beer and chat it up a little bit.
You're in California, and there is great beer. You mentioned right before I pushed record that you're in wine country. How has that trickled into the beer over there? Have they been messing around, putting some Chardonnay must into things? Because that was a little trend about like 2 years ago.
There's a ton of like craft beer around here. I don't know that I've seen. I mean, there's some I've seen like wine barrel aged like stouts and stuff like that.
Yeah, that's cool.
So yeah, I think that's what I see the most often. But yeah, I'm surprised there's not more crossover there, honestly.
It's something that just hangs around. I had made a beer with Phantasm, basically, is what it's called. I feel like I might be right. I didn't make the beer. Someone made the beer for me. A 5 Baron up here in Quebec, from Gatineau, Quebec. And they put a Phantasm, which is Chardonnay grape must, into the beer. And it gives like a real weird, earthy, fruity flavor.
Interesting. Yeah. I like wine and stuff, but I'm definitely more. I understand beer a little bit more. So like, there's so much to wine, and like, you know, you get around someone that like really knows wine, and it's just like, all right, I don't know shit.
There's red.
I can hold my own. But.
There's red. There's white. There's rosé, and there's orange. And orange is a new one, but probably not. But that's. No, I'm teasing. But it's Vox&Hops, where I hang out with my metal friends talking about their lives and music while sharing killer craft beers. What beer are you going to drink first? What beer are you going to drink, Alex? Showcase it to the world and let everyone know what you're drinking.
All right. Yeah, I'm excited about this because this is one of my favorite breweries, and it's like their tap room is right down the street from my house. And so it's like my go-to Friday night, like burger and beer spot.
Hell yeah.
It's called Fogbelt Brewing. Yeah, out of here, right here in Santa Rosa. This is a wet hop India Pale Ale. Yeah, with local, so it's got like fresh picked local hops, Comet and Brewer's Gold, and yeah, it's really good. I got a couple packs in preparation for this talk, and I like reached into them last night a little bit just to make sure I actually like them.
You're doing market research. That's what I call it.
Exactly. I figured it was a good excuse to do it.
It's cool the fresh hops into beer. I've had one in Portland Wayfinder beer is where that I've had a beer like that, because they're so close to the Yakima Valley that the hops come right in and they throw them right into the tank as if they're like picked that day and then straight into the tank, and it creates like a very, very like vegetal IPA. It's like fruity but still very, very vegetal.
Yeah, and this is like kind of hazy. But
with hops, as you mentioned, I wouldn't have guessed it to be. It would be more of like a New World West Coasty almost vibe, like dank. And
yeah, totally is. And it's like the hazy thing was like taking over for a minute, and like I feel like within the last couple of years I'm starting to see a lot more like West Coast style IPAs, and I'm like, yes, because I got really into the hazies and I was like, I could just drink them all day. And then like after a while there's like a certain like, I don't know, there's a certain like skunkiness that like I can't drink for more than one beer, basically. So I started getting more into like the West Coast IPAs recently, and luckily I think those are kind of becoming trendy again.
Totally. The whole haze forward beers and the breweries that basically just make all their money off of hazy beers, the ones that are really, really good at it do it superbly, and then a bunch of other people do it and they're just... And when I tour in the States, I hit a certain point always where I can't even drink haze anymore, because I'm just so fed up of drinking this type of beer, this lackluster expression of the beer versus what I can get up here in Montreal. And I only drink like specific breweries like Masorum. This next beer that I'm going to drink from Sir John is another one, and I'm sorry because it is a hazy IPA, and it's from my IPA competition that went on early August called Vox&Hops Haze Wars, where I teamed up with Yakima Chief Hops. Yakima Chief Hops are a hop producer in the Yakima Valley in the United States, and they produce probably hops that are in a lot of beers out there that people are drinking because they're huge. And they sponsored this for the second year in a row, the Haze Wars. Shout out to Luc Beaulieu for doing that. This is Sir John's contribution. So this year we challenged the breweries to use the NZ hop line from Yakima Chief Hops, and that is their New Zealand hops. They have a bunch of farms in New Zealand, and there's 3 hops in this one, the Motueka, Riawaka, and Nelson Sauvage. And 5 breweries made their best IPA. The IPA had to be between 6 and 7%, and I basically should have disqualified them because this one is 7.2%, but I was nice, and they made a nice Contra-inspired...
Yeah, the label's too cool to...
It should be played on that TV behind you as we were talking before. We hit record. Last year, Sir John were the Haze Lords, the winner of the Haze Wars, but this year they did not win. So, but I still like this beer. I'm going to crack this, and I would love to hear about your very first beer, Alex.
Very first beer? Damn, that is quite a question. Man, I mean, so my family is my dad moved here from Croatia, so and Europeans tend to be a little, and I think Canadians a little more lenient on, giving the kids a sip of the drink. So growing up, I was always tasting, my dad's drinks and stuff like that, but. Man, it's like probably just some shitty like PBR or something at like a high school party or something was like the realistic. But yeah, I don't know. It's that's a hard to say. Do you have a visceral memory of your first?
I do, because I was a very, very, what's the right word I'm looking for? I had lenient. That's not the right word. I was a bit of a nerd, but and I like to follow rules, and I definitely remember the first beer I had. It was a Lucky Lager. I was at a high school party at Casey's house. If Casey ever listens to this, thank you, and thank you to Susan Brown, his mother, for putting up with us having parties at his house far too young. And it was a Lucky Lager. It's a brewery. I don't even know what brewery made that. Probably some big one, and it was some weird like offshoot brand that they were trying to just pretend that it was something different when it was really probably just a repackaged Molson or something. It was not good. It was warm and it was disgusting, and it took me a long time I don't even think I finished the 6-pack.
Yeah, I guess I could say memorable early beer moments is like, my buddy, like everyone, it was like, this was like late teens, I guess. And, he kind of had the house where parents were cool and, everyone hung out in the garage and we jammed there and stuff like that. And, he was drinking like IPAs and shit, like way before any of the rest of us did. So I remember he would always get these 6-packs of, you might have probably heard of Ninkasi. They're out of Eugene. Total Domination, Ninkasi Total Domination. And it's like a pretty heavy
It sounds
IPA.
like an 8%, 7% IPA is going to punch you in the teeth.
And it's just like it's pretty skunky. I mean, I haven't had one in a long time, but I just
It's like back in the day when IPAs were bitter, and they were like, the IBU of this is 110 because back in the day, there's these brandings that go on as like sales pitch, and when I got into craft beer, it was the IBU. And you would try these beers with ridiculous IBUs that were just like palate scrapers. And then it translated into, it transferred out of bitterness into juicy IPA. So they were like dry hopped. That was the next.
Yeah.
And then double dry hopped.
I feel like I still see like IBU values on beer cans.
Oh, yeah.
Sometimes.
Not over here. Not in Montreal. No way. No. People just want the juice. They don't want the bitterness. So I feel
they're like, keep that out of there.
Yeah. But back to the jam room, bitter.
Yeah, but I just remember it's like we would have like Rolling Rock because just cheap, and then we'd have like, like a 12-pack of these IPAs, and like no one would drink them until like the end of the night.
Which is a bad decision. You should start with those people.
Exactly. And then like, we get through all the shitty cheap beer and be like, I guess we'll drink one of your skunky beers.
God damn.
And then just like, being at 1 a.m. or whatever, 19, just like, oh man, this is terrible, but I want to get more drunk. So.
I'm sure that was effective.
Yeah, it was.
I have a Croatia story because I never played in Croatia until recently in February with Atheist. We actually had a day off. There was only one day off on that whole tour. And we were supposed to, this is funny if anyone's a touring musician, they're going to like this. We were supposed to play the Viper Room, and we chose to not play the Viper Room because of the load-in. It's just the worst. It's a bunch of stairs. It's like 4 flights down, and then some of the stairs are broken, and we chose to have a day off. I'm sorry, Austria, but we had a day off in Croatia, in Zagreb.
Oh, sweet.
And I had a very, very, very hard time drinking good craft beer.
Because I've actually been to Zagreb once, but I was like, I think I was 18 and with my parents, so it was kind of just a tourist thing. I think I drank beer, but it was probably like they actually make. So my dad grew up in this town called Karlovac, which is like 40 minutes outside, and they make this famous Croatian beer there called Karlovačko pivo.
Okay. I drank some like green beer, but the label was green. I posted on socials.
I'm trying to think what the label. I haven't seen one in a really long time because it's like my dad would like go to the Euro stores and like buy those. But it's like a green bottle, but they usually come in like a larger bottle, and it's like a very like sweet kind of lager, kind of honey-ish.
Oh, I feel like the one that I had was actually Slovakian, now that I'm remembering it, because I was with Chris and he was talking about being with a girl back in the day and drinking a bunch of those Slovakian. I'm pretty sure that that's the truth. That's what, I found a picture of Dom sleeping in the weird position. Oh, here we go. Oh, no, it was Lasco. Yeah, sorry. Yeah.
Okay, it looks a lot like So,
but it's Slovakia. It was okay. It was. We were doing laundry, and there was a bar next door where people smoked too much, and
great for the vocalist, right? Like,
I had a moment. I was outside. It was okay, but Croatia. It was fun though. We had, the show was crazy. It was a crazy show.
I've heard that Croatia can be pretty wild if you find the right places. This is allegedly.
It was cool. It was in this. It felt like a squat, but it was like an artsy place. if you get my vibe there. But we did go to a very, very cool bar up on a rooftop that overlooked like the cathedral, and there was some craft beer. There was some brewery that I kept seeing. I just didn't like it, but it was okay. It was nice. We had a great night and a rough next day. I was drinking actually Yakima. What's the plum brandy?
Slivovitz?
No, Yergava. Anyways, I was drinking plum brandy that the bassist of Faith No More makes, and I was sending him pictures, and he was like, "That's horrible. Do not drink that."
That's awesome.
You can get so much better than this.
Yeah, there's some strong. There's a liquor called Slivovitz, which is like.
I feel like I've had that. Yeah.
It's like I'm pretty sure it's made of plums, but it's like Everclear basically. It's so strong, and I have family in Croatia still, and they have
it's Serbian, if I remember correctly.
They
Serbian,
make it themselves and shit.
Serbian plum brandy. It's gonna jump up. No, it's exactly. It's probably the same thing because this is coming up as Slivovitz.
Yeah.
Rakia. There we go. It's actually the same thing. It's Rakia.
Is that like the Serbian version?
Maybe. Yeah. Plum brandy, also known as Slivovitz or Rakia.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. I've like gotten a bottle as a gift for my parents, since I've been in California, and I had all my friends try it, and then most of them were like, "Oh God,
my eyes are burning."
Yeah, and it's funny. And you mentioned like Portland breweries and stuff earlier. I actually grew up in Portland and moved down here like when I was 24. So yeah, I grew up around all of the craft beer.
It's
like crazy in Portland,
insane up there. When you play, I remember Cannibal Corpse tour. Playing the Hawthorne, and there's a Fred Meyer's across the street, and I go over there and we look at this beer section, and it's like 12 rows long. A lot of it's crap now that I'm more well versed in craft beer, but back then I was like, holy shit, like what are we gonna get? What are we gonna get?
You gotta go to the tap room for that usually. Yeah, totally. Yeah, and actually Safeway around here has like always had like a good,
that's cool,
a good section of it, and like Whole Foods or whatever. Like that's where I think I got another beer here. A Ghost Town beer. I don't know
my boys. Yeah, they made me a bunch of beers. I literally wrote them an email today.
Really?
Yeah. Shout out to Ryan.
This one's a collab with Olfactory Brewing.
That's sick. And did you buy that at a Safeway? Was that what you were?
No, this one was from Whole Foods. I've stopped at Whole Foods on the way home. But it's just
I wrote them because we're doing Devastation on the Nation. Devastation on the Nation this year, and I'm sponsoring it, and what I'm bringing to the table is that I'm getting beers made for the shows. So Ghost Town are super into it, and I started poking around to try to make it happen today.
Yeah, that's kind of my I mean, they always do stuff with like bands and stuff.
They're so
that's
cool.
Always
They've
been
made
one of those things where I'm like, I'm such a sucker for that shit. It's I want to do that.
They will totally make you a beer. We'll talk afterwards. They are very, very cool, and they've made me, I think, 3 or 4 beers if I can.
Yeah, I know a couple people work there or have worked there and stuff like that, and I'm like, I just love like artisanal things in general. It's like craft beers and like nice wines, nice liquors and shit. It's like, just like when you can tell that there's like someone actually gave a shit when they made it. It's like, it's like the same with like guitars or anything that you can get. It's just like when you feel something and it's like, okay, someone cared about this. It's like, that gets me going,
That's where the beer and the metal come together.
Exactly.
Actually, how I got hooked up with Ghost Town was actually Jerry Monk again, because he hooked me up with Jameson Kester, who worked there for a bit, and that's how I got roped in with Ghost Town, was through Jameson Kester, who was in Labored Breath, or is in Labored Breath. I think it's a one-man thing, and Jerry Monk actually made that intro too.
That's pretty awesome, because like, that guy's just making the connections for you.
It's Jerry. I caught on very early on that he had his finger on the pulse and is extremely passionate about extreme music and underground extreme music. And I try my best to stay up to date with everything, but I just can't keep up. So
I know it's nice because I was just talking about this today too. It's like you get so caught up in like, all right, I'm going to try to listen to all this new shit that comes out, and it's like you start hearing a lot of stuff that you're like, I don't even like this. Why am I listening to it?
It's worse with old age. I don't know how old you are yet, but I'm 41 now, and I don't like anything. But
I'm 31, and I'm like, I feel like I'm like every time I listen to something, I'm like, dude, turn off your like your critic brain.
Oh, it's
and
tough,
just enjoy music for a second, because it's like
streaming too. Streaming makes it really, really hard to appreciate stuff because it's never ending.
Yeah, exactly.
Back in the day, you would spend money on a record and you would have to give it a chance, at least a few listens, so that eventually you're like, oh, I do like this.
That's actually an interesting point. That, I mean, it's obvious in a way, but it's like the way you stated it is like, that's interesting because it's like we're no longer like investing in finding music. It's like it's more of like, okay, I'm gonna like hear 1,000 bands and maybe one will stand out and I'll go buy their record as like a consolation prize for them or whatever, you know what I mean?
I'll buy a shirt at a show.
Well, yeah, let's not go that far. But no, but it's true. That is interesting because it's like, even I think I caught the end of that, and because I'm 31, so I think I caught the end of that because I remember going into the CD or record store, CDs at the time.
What a commitment we were making. That was a lot of them. They were expensive, those things.
Totally. And I think one of the first ones, and it's like to this day, like one of the most influential albums of my life is like, I went into Music Millennium in Portland. I don't know if you ever heard of that. It's like Music Millennium in Portland, and found this Coroner Punishment for Decadence album, and I was just, I don't know, I was probably like 14 or something, and I was like, man, this is a cool looking
it's just cover. The cover. Isn't that crazy how that relationship is gone?
Yeah, and I was like, I think I've heard this name before, like someone said it was cool, I'm gonna buy it. And then like, yeah, you go home and listen to it, and I was like mind blown by it. So definitely Lost Art. It's kind of interesting. I try to get into that every once in a while when I go into a record store, just like
take a chance,
if it's priced.
You take out your phone and you're checking.
Yeah, you're like Discogs, like how much is this thing worth?
Metal Archives ratings.
Yeah, exactly. Who do I know in this band?
It's like me with IMDb with any movie I watch.
Oh yeah, totally.
Am I going to spend 2 hours on this? It better have a 7 on 10. If it doesn't have a 7 on 10, I'm not watching it.
Dude, I honestly, that's the same for me. Like, my wife and I will be like, scanning through stuff, and we're like, man, this is like 3 hours long. We're like, fuck it, we're not watching that. And then we'll watch like 2 movies in a row or something like that. It's like way longer than that. And it's like, we totally could have watched that movie.
We'll watch both Dunes, but
yeah, exactly. True.
Back to you, the coroner thing. It fits into this, the classic Vox and Hops question, the soundtrack of your youth. When you were growing up in your parents' or guardians' house, what music was playing? When you were not in control of the radio, what music did your parents or guardians listen to?
That is an interesting question. I mean, honestly, I have to give it up to my parents a little bit for getting me into the proto metal stuff, I guess you could call it, like, Deep Purple, Foghat, Zeppelin, just kind of like, my dad was like a big Rolling Stone reader, like from like the 70s on.
That's cool.
And so he's always been kind of like, he has like, I don't know, a pretty big CD collection and like 2,000 records, on shelves in our basement and stuff. So I definitely grew up around a lot of music. Definitely not metal by any means, but I think the heaviest thing he had was probably like Black Sabbath.
The roots of metal.
Yeah. I mean, Black Sabbath kind of counts, right? But
Deep Purple too.
Yeah, totally. And it's like, I remember like Foghat, like I remember he played, I think I got a guitar and, at school learned how to play like Smoke on the Water or something.
You got a
And my
guitar
dad
at
was-
school.
Well, it was like a class guitar, and like showed when I was like came home, I was like grabbed our acoustic guitar that my dad had. I'm like, look, I can play this riff
Because
He's
someone
like,
showed you, like a classmate?
Yeah, exactly. I think
Did you
like,
play it on the E string, or did you play it the right way?
Oh yeah, on the E string.
Yeah.
First, I mean, I learned it
Me
the
too.
right way.
Me too. When I
but-
was playing guitar back in the day, but
yeah, I remember like coming home and he was like, do you even know who does that song? And I'm like, no, dude. And so he brought me down, into our basement and like put on the record and gave me the sleeve, and
that's awesome.
kind of looked at that. And I remember he played Fog Hat for me, and I actually was listening to that record a couple of days ago, and I was like looking at the cover, and I was like, man, these guys, like, they kind of look just like drunk and stoned on the cover. They're all
probably
hanging
were.
out. Exactly. And I just like remember thinking as a kid, like, I don't know what's going on here, but like I kind of like it.
This is awkward.
Like, yeah. But yeah, that kind of stuff, like definitely the classic rock and stuff, and then a lot of like honestly like kind of like alternative and like 90s rock kind of stuff, like Weezer and like White Stripes and like Modest Mouse and like shit like that. Like my parents would listen to a lot. So, and like Neil Young and fucking Bruce Springsteen, all that kind of shit. And so kind of like classic, someone who was growing up in the 70s taste with a little bit of 90s in there because they stayed somewhat
relevant with the Rolling Stone. Me and Flo in Cryptopsy love Neil Young. We have late night discussions and basically with Neil Young playing and talking about the lyrics and yeah. And then my Smoke on the Water song story is I'm an early childhood educator, not so much anymore, but still a little bit. And I had this parent tell me that she was driving home after picking up her daughter. This girl must be like 18 by this point because I've been doing it for so long. Was just coming the next day and being like, she was singing ba 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 in the back seat, and I was like, wait a minute, what are you? And the mom was so happy that I had exposed them to this music,
Totally, yeah. I mean, it's important. It's so funny to think about like those little exposures you get as a kid and like
where it leads to, hypothetically.
Yeah, and the ideas from like even if it's abstract, like the ideas that you grab from something, or it's like, oh, like I remember hearing Queens of the Stone Age as a kid and being like, this is metal, okay? Like thinking that was like
that's extreme for sure, yeah.
Yeah, and then like being in, I don't know, 5th, 6th grade and like some friend's older brother being like, this isn't metal, this is metal. And they play on like Cradle of Filth or some shit. And it's like, yeah. And then like, I remember that moment actually, cause like, I had this friend who had an older brother that was really into black metal in like 5th, 6th grade. And, I remember having that exact kind of conversation, like, is this metal? And he's like, nah, dude. And he gave me like a burned CD, and it was
just the most blasphemous stuff ever.
I think it had the like Cradle of Filth cover of Twisted Sisters, Burn in Hell. I don't know if you heard that cover. It's something else, but I was like, this is sick, dude. And yeah, totally listen to that all the time. But it's really funny because like, I think I still have this burn CD actually. There was like random, like really like Roller Coaster of Love was on the CD. So in case his parents walked in and he could like skip to that track and like pretend like he was listening to that. And I was like, man,
that's smart.
I know. I was like, man, like, because I definitely, at that age, I was like, man, this is like satanic,
dangerous.
And my parents are like very Catholic and stuff like that. So it was like, I didn't want them to like know about any of this stuff.
How did they react to you getting into the more extreme stuff? What was that justified, or were they just open and cool about it?
It was a long journey. They're definitely supportive now.
They wear Vile Rites shirts.
Yeah, actually.
There you go. That's cool.
It's actually really funny because like I had a band in high school called Gladius, and it was just like thrash band, and they still have their shirts from like when I did that.
Of course they do.
And they'll come out to like current shows like
with Gladius
like,
shirts on.
Shirt.
Oh, that's sick. No, that's cool.
And
That's
I'm like, that's very cool. But I'm like, put that away. Like, no,
I think that's awesome. One day when you're like, it's gonna be worth something like when, 10, who knows?
Yeah, exactly. So it's funny because it was definitely, I think the biggest thing, it was, of course the religious stuff came into it, but it was always like, my dad had showed me so much music, so I was like, you gotta like this stuff, right? And he's like, no, I don't like it at all. He's like, I wish they would just like stop the vocals. Like the music is cool, but like the vocals are, like a lot of people of that generation couldn't really get into the.
It's very extreme. It's very, very extreme what vocally we do. At what point did you start doing extreme vocals? Was it since you're a guitarist, I'm assuming that you had no choice but to be the singer because no one else wanted to do it?
Kind of. I think so. In my band, like the first band I was in, I did just guitar, and that band Gladius, just guitar, and then we had like a standalone vocalist, because he did like the Rob Halford kind of shit. Yeah. And so I did like backups on that, but I actually wanted to do vocals in Vile Rites. One, probably a little bit of like control freak there. But two, I started realizing that like all of my heroes, like guitar heroes, were frontmen, vocalists, kind of guitar players. And I was like, you know what, I can do that. Because at first I thought like, there's no way. I didn't grow up playing acoustic songs and like singing at the same time. So I was like nerding out right away. And so like, it seemed pretty difficult to do guitar and vocals at the same time, of course. And I mean, it is, but it seemed unattainable to me, like in my younger years. And then I just kind of threw myself into it, and I was like, I can do this. And here we are. So
was that like, I can do this, and then you just started writing and composing stuff for Vile Rites, or did you start doing covers where you tried to like figure out if you could do it? Who were these heroes? Because so far you haven't mentioned. You mentioned Cradle of Filth. You mentioned Cradle of Filth, but that's not a guitarist singer.
Yeah, I wouldn't say that is like that Cradle of Filth is a huge influence for me. But other than that, I guess that moment I gotta give it to them on that. Like, it opened my mind to some ideas. But anyways, yeah, I mean, I would say I think the first song I remember playing and singing was I learned Crystal Mountain by Death, and we tried to cover that in my thrash band before we had a vocalist, and I was like, okay, I can kind of do this, and it was probably awful, I don't know. And I think that was the only cover that I tried to learn, like guitar vocal wise, before starting to try to like make my own songs, because Vile Rites started in Portland kind of as kind of on the fallout of Gladius, that first band. Like me and the drummer decided to keep going. Everyone else, we were kind of like, we don't want to do the like power metal vocals thing anymore. We want to like move in a more death metal direction, and kind of just called it a day. And I started composing my own song, or, my own lyrics and stuff. And yeah, I guess it kind of just, I still write this way to this day, is like playing, I'll sit down with the guitar and a notepad, and usually I'll kind of have an outline of what I want to say, and I'll kind of just start like fitting in words to like what I think I can do rhythmically over the riff. So it's very like riff centric, and then the vocals come in. I want to make a point with the vocals, but like I don't want to exceed what I can pull off live, basically.
That's really interesting that you do it that way, because then you definitely know what is physically possible for you at the same time.
Yeah, and I think just to have the guitar like helps with the rhythm of it. For me, like okay, what parts do I want to be emphasized on the guitar versus having vocals over them versus whatever, and it helps me kind of just like, I guess it turns it into like a crossword puzzle almost. It's like, okay, I can fit this many syllables right here. Maybe I can cram something in, but like, how do I want to phrase what I'm trying to say based on what I think will fit within the
It's super fun.
structure.
It's super, super fun. It's one of my favorite things to do. I'm doing it right now for the new Cryptopsy. I have 8 songs lyrically written, and they have to catch up with me at this point. But by the time this comes out, they'll be finished. But and then we're going to go and I'm going to hang out with Chris, and he's going to dissect everything that I've done, and we're going to fit it in to the music, and I'm going to have to do the crossword puzzle where I have this message that I'm trying to get across, and I have to remove words and restructure sentences.
Get that thesaurus out.
Thesaurus out, yeah. The internet's really good, but
yeah, you're like, what rhymes with this word?
oh, I totally use. There's a whole thing because we just did Blast We Made Flesh at MDF, and I used to not focus on rhyming. And on this new record, I'm trying to rhyme. So I've definitely been using the internet rhyme thing. But
yeah, I think when I write lyrics,
Rhyme
like,
Zone, I think it's called, if anyone wants to check it out.
Exactly. It's like just gives you the list of all the words. And, it's like I'm kind of anti-rhyme, but like... but rhyme at the same. I do a lot of my lyrics.
I think it has to be worthwhile and memorable. If not, it just seems forced.
Yeah,
like not everything
Dr.
can
Seuss.
rhyme with me. See. It has to be a little bit more eloquent.
And I also like to do like the God, I forgot the word is for it, but it's like the rhymes that like it's like orange and door hinge. It's like not quite
the way
a real rhyme.
There's an Eminem. There's an Eminem video out there if you guys want to check this out there where he's saying nothing rhymes with orange and then he makes 1,000 things rhyme with it while he's like messing with the cadence and how you pronounce words and how you put them together. That is super interesting. Yeah,
Exactly. I get really into that. But I do try to rhyme some stuff just because I try to do like pattern, like weird rhyme patterns. So I do think about it sometimes, but yeah, I'll sit right here. And this is where
the spot.
do all
this is it. This is the
spot.
magic spot.
This is where all of Senescence is written right here. But yeah, I'll like sit here in front of my computer and like have the thesaurus and the rhyme thing up, and like I don't like try not to lean on it too much where it's like I'm going to replace every word with like some weird version of the word.
Chat GPT song about.
Exactly. But so I don't want it to be like that. But at the same time, it's like sometimes a one word will like inspire me to write. Like
exactly. That's 100%. Absolutely. That's what I do with the rhyme thing. And I'm like, this is a good line. What should be the next thing? And then you read this one word and you're like, oh, fuck. Okay, cool. And then that ends up becoming the main line. And then you erase the first part and then it ends up being something completely different.
Totally. Yeah.
The tools that we have we got to use the tools we have. There's no shame in using the tools.
I think we would be, we'd be remiss not to use that. And it's like, that's how Senescence, like the album title came to be is like, I learned that word and I was like, this is a cool word. And I was actually researching, like the cover has got the octopus on it. And I was like, I want to make a song that's like, uses the octopus as this metaphor for a life cycle because, octopuses, like when they reproduce, they die basically. So like the male will come and, the male will come and, but anyway, like the female will like, the female will lay her eggs in like a cage, like a little hole or something and just stay there with the eggs, protecting them until they hatch and basically die in the process doing it. So it's not like giving birth kills her. It's just like,
do the babies eat her body? Because that's death metal.
I think like, I don't know for sure on that part, but I think basically what happens is basically she just like starves herself to protect the eggs and then dies. And then the octopuses all hatch and stuff. And like, they're just out there, like they just figure it out. And so it's kind of crazy. So I was like, I learned about that and I was like, okay, this is a really cool metaphor for kind of like this like life cycle thing I'm trying to like make part of our next album. So I was just doing this research looking for like nerding out on that process a little bit more just to find like more ideas from it. And that word senescence comes up, which means like, it's basically aging. It basically means that like your cells are no longer able to replicate themselves, and therefore the cells of your organism start dying, and therefore you're dying. So like I thought that was a really like cool idea. I mean, it's just like a biological term that I use in biology a lot, and that was inspiring to like almost the whole album, you know? So it's like sometimes just one word, learning a new word for me can be like, oh man, this is like such a cool idea. I like, you know, in 31 years, I never heard this word, and now I'm hearing it and it's like pretty fucking metal.
You Google it and you're like, there's no other albums named this. Hell yes.
Yeah.
That's what I do every time.
Dude, that's so true. It's like, even with the name, I remember when I came up with Vile Rites, I was like,
there has to be.
Like,
there has to be.
Yeah, it's got to be used. It's like, it's two short words, man. It's like two commonly used words in metal. And I was like mind blown that no one had used it. And then like, of course I made the Facebook page and stuff. And then like, right as we were starting to like really get in the swing of like writing our first EP, fucking Nile released Vile Nilotic Rites. And I was just like, Carl! And I was like, I wonder if, you know, honestly, I thought about this. I was like, I wonder if they Googled that, and like our shitty like band page came up, and they were like, dude, this doesn't matter at all. Like we're gonna call it that. And like I like to think that process happened.
It's funny because I just had Carl on the podcast, and I think your episode's going to come out right after his or shortly thereafter. So it's very funny.
Yeah, we'll have to talk, and I'll be like, did you Google it?
He's great. We had a great episode. People go listen to it, but he's awesome. What do you guys got coming up to promo this new record? You got shows coming up. You got some tours coming up. What's going on?
We do have a show actually at the end of the month, just in the Bay Area, supporting a label mate called Dungeon Crawl on their release show. It's kind of just a last minute thing that we're doing. Really cool band though. It's kind of like this like crazy like symphonic technical thrash that's all like D&D themed. So I was like, fuck it, dude. Yeah, we'll play with you guys. Hell yeah. And yeah, they're also on Carbonized Records, so we're hopping on their show. But yeah, touring wise, we're seeing what we can get, if that makes sense. Like,
no, it totally makes sense, because it's not easy to go out and tour unless it makes sense financially and logistically, and it's very, very, very expensive to tour. So
exactly. So it's like, so we did a run. It's really funny because we did a run like literally 2 weeks before the album dropped, like a West Coast run, because I started planning it like early in the year. I was like, I'm gonna get way ahead on this and just like plan a tour, because I thought the album wasn't going to come out until like the end of this year. So I got this tour all set, and then Carbonized was like, oh, we might be able to get the album out in time for that tour. And then it didn't quite happen. So it's like we ended up doing
the vinyls.
Yeah, exactly. We didn't end up doing this run, or we ended up doing this run like 2 weeks before the album dropped. And we didn't have the records on the road or anything. So I was just like, but it was still cool, because I think a lot of people were still learning about us at that point. And so I think like it set a foundation for people to check out the new record, which is cool. But yeah, so we kind of blew our load a little early on that. And so basically now we're just kind of seeing what kind of offers we can get. So now that I think we're on a few more radars now, and we're still a pretty new band. So if we don't get any cool offers by the end of this year, we'll probably plan something ourselves again and just do it DIY.
It's the great thing about California is that you can tour all year long, as opposed to up here. There's like a 3-4 month gap in Montreal, Canada area, that touring in that is dangerous. Not horribly dangerous, but we try not to do it.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's like, dude, there's so much money on the line that like you plan a tour and then like the whole thing collapses, and you already have like, you know, it's rentals and, you know, whatever, the merch printed and shit. And it's like,
I just started making tour shirts again.
Yeah, it's scary because, you know, the same actually that happened to us, because we were supposed to go to Portland a couple of years ago. It was like supposed to be a weekend run, like Portland and Olympia. Oregon and Washington. And yeah, it was like the day we were leaving, like this massive snowstorm happened like at the mountain pass and in Portland, from California. And it's just
Never
like,
mind.
we can't go.
No, exactly.
And so now we're kind of like, okay, we're not going north.
No,
This time of year, we'll go south. We'll go into the desert. That's
go
fine.
to Albuquerque. go down to Arizona. Have fun.
Yeah, exactly. And then north during the summer. That's good.
If you could, I haven't asked someone this question in a very long time. A dream tour to put yourselves in front of the perfect audience. Who would that be with? Pick a headliner, direct support, and then you guys type thing.
Headliner. Fuck, Cynic comes to mind. Of course, Atheist comes to mind. Gorguts was way up there. Opeth would be like.
I didn't listen to that new single yet. I'm excited for this new record.
Oh, actually, I was listening on the way home today. I was like, yes.
I didn't listen to it. I Opeth's one of those things that I want to just experience. So.
Yeah, that's how I am with that. But yeah, I mean, them, and then on a more realistic, bands like, I like a lot of these bands that are coming out now that are kind of trying to do some genre mixing stuff. Like Blood Incantation, of course, is like doing some cool stuff with like the prog shit that they're trying to do, and
the Weird Synth album that I love.
Yeah, totally.
I totally love that.
Yeah, me too. Tomb Mold is an awesome band. Good friends with Faceless Burial, and Mortuous has toured with them. So just kind of that that death metal with the prog edge, I would say, definitely is kind of like our home, I feel like. but yeah, I mean, it's interesting because you spend all this time writing a record and you're like, this is what this record is. And then you start reading reviews and you're like, wow, people are perceiving this in a way that I did not expect. And some people are perceiving it in a way you do expect. And some people are like, oh, this is like old school death metal through and through. And it was kind of like, oh, interesting. All right. Like, I definitely want to be rooted in death metal, but we definitely want to push a little bit, try to add a little bit more weirdness into it, I guess.
That is very interesting that us as artists are at we have to succumb to what we're being interpreted as.
And it's interesting. Because it's like, this is the first, like the EP got some reviews and stuff, but like this album, it's like a lot of people are reviewing it.
Well, Carbonize must have sent it out to a bunch of people. And
yeah, totally. We had like an actual PR campaign versus like us just posting on like, oh, we released an album. So like we're seeing these reviews and it's like, you know what, like, can't even worry about it. It's like, and by the way, it's like 95% of the reviews have been really positive, but like,
you only remember the one. You only remember the one bad one.
Exactly. Or like a positive review that says like one bad thing.
You only remember that. And trust me. Yes. Oh yeah. My whole career. Come on. But Alex, I have one last question for you. Classic Vox and Hops wrap-up question. It probably doesn't happen to you very often because I don't know. You seem to be put together, and you sampled the wares last night, but you don't look too horrible today. But every once in a while, it happens to everyone. What is your hangover cure?
Ooh, hangover cure. Definitely, it's going to start with a joint.
California,
honestly. California, raised in Oregon, so yeah. And then, honestly, it's just like the shittiest food I can find usually, and then like a shitload of water, and then, like, because I'm like, this is gonna fix me. Like it doesn't, but I feel like
it's a good step for sure. Hydration, because you are definitely dehydrated, and the shitty food is full of salt.
Exactly, which makes you retain the hydration a little bit. But
exactly, and then you want to drink even more water.
Yeah, exactly.
Hypothetically, something else, but
yeah, I mean, yeah, or just like a mimosa. You're like, fuck it, dude. Like
mimosas are so goddamn good and dangerous. Oh my gosh, yeah.
You're like, now we're day drinking. I'm not hungover
Why is
anymore.
this acceptable?
That's true.
It's basically a shot.
Exactly. Like, why not? In the morning at 11 a.m.?
With like your parents? It's like...
Yeah, exactly. It's like, what is it, Easter or something? Like drinking like
I love it.
mimosas and shit.
Alex, thank you so much for taking the time hanging out with me. We're going to keep it hanging for a bit, but not with people listening. Everyone go check out Vile Rites. Senescence dropped August 16th via Carbonized Records. I know I'm going to listen to it after hearing about how it got created and talking to you. I'm definitely super eager, so you Vox and Hops should definitely go listen to it as well. Alex, thank you so much. This has been great.
Cheers.
Hey, thank you all so much for listening right today. You know that I love and appreciate that. Man, this was an awesome conversation. I was so stoked that Jerry Monk introduced me to Alex and Vile Rites. This record is becoming quickly one of my favorite of the year, and I had a great time hanging out with Alex and talking deeper about that. Massive cheers to you, Alex. I can't wait to hang out again soon. The Vox and Hops Metal Podcast is brought to you by Sound Talent Media and Evergreen Podcasts. I hope that you have a killer rest of the week. I will be back next week with another episode, but until then, remember to enjoy life, metal, and craft beer. Cheers, Vox and Hops heads.